I know it's tempting. I know it looks delicious, but you can't drink it. Don't drink it. Just don't. Don't drink it. I said don't drink it. Don't drink it. Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, your treasure trove of terrible transportation. We're back here with my 1983 Chevy S-10 pickup that I got for free from my Uncle Doug, and we're going to get some work done on it. Now, a quick recap. In the last video that I showed with this truck, I got it for free, and I had to go out to the desert to pick it up and bring it home. So, and when we got it home, we did a quick walk around and really just kind of an introduction, diagnosis into what was wrong with it. So this truck has been on fire. It was a minor fire, but it did torch some spark plug wires and some vacuum lines, and I think it originated from the fuel line. So what I noticed when I pulled it apart was that the fuel line had been cut and sections of it replaced with rubber lines. I don't know if that was the exact cause of the fire, but it is a good theory to go off of, and I want to replace that fuel line. So in order to replace the fuel line on this truck, we need to remove the carburetor and we need to remove the fuel pump. The power steering pump is already out of the way, and so if we could get all that replaced, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to start this thing up. I don't have high expectations, but it's still really exciting. So under the hood here, you can see this is the fuel line, and it connects to the back of the carburetor, somewhere right there, actually. And inside here, it's a little hard to see, but underneath the carburetor, you can see right there, there is a little section of rubber hose that I think is the cause of the leak. Now, I'm not sure why it's cut and repaired like that, but my theory is that someone had to replace it, but did not want to remove the carburetor or any of this other stuff. So it might have been a shortcut to doing a proper repair. So I think the answer is to just not take the shortcut. I think we need to pull the carburetor, we need to pull the fuel pump, and then replace the line, and we can replace the carburetor and fuel pump again. I'm probably going to have to get a new carburetor gasket, but those are pretty universal. So especially among all of these Chevy trucks, they're basically all the same. We're starting to get a little bit of rain, so I decided to throw up the canopy just to make my life a little more comfortable, or less uncomfortable, I should say. Over here you see I do have the air cleaner on. I replaced the line, and the good news was I did not have to pull the carburetor. I did have to pull the fuel pump, and because my new line is all solid, and of course it came in the mail, so it was slightly bent, it took a lot of convincing to get this line to go where it needed to go. See, I thought the hardest part was going to be threading in the nut at the end of the hard line, and it was hard, but it was not the hardest part. The hardest part was reconnecting the fuel pump once I got the hard line threaded in. So the fuel pump has two bolts here, one up here and one down there. And what happened was the line was, like I said, slightly bent, and the line was actually pushing against the engine block. And I had to kind of just pull on it and work it around in order to be able to find the thread. Once I found the thread in here, everything kind of started to come together. I drove it all in and it all worked. And so after I got that in, I had to reconnect these lines. I also had to remove the lower radiator hose just so I could get some extra room to work down in there. And so I dumped all of the coolant, which it looks like it needed to be flushed anyway. Some of it looked orange, some of it looked green. So it's kind of impossible to tell if I have a blown head gasket or what, if anything, is going on that I need to know about. Just because the coolant just doesn't look good. So I'm going to change the coolant, and then if I start this up and get it running, I can do a block test, and but one step at a time. So that means with the fuel line reconnected, we can test fire this. So the next thing I need to do is figure out what to do about this battery. So this is the positive line, but I don't see the negative terminal anywhere at all. Maybe it fell down in there. I'll get a light and shine it down in there, but if not, I'm gonna have to run a new ground. After that, I just gotta hook up a battery, maybe get some gas and put some heat in the tank. I'll put some heat in the tank to remove all of the water from the fuel system, and we might be able to start this up, but with this rain, I don't know. So I have a new ground terminal for my battery, and since my batteries don't have side posts, the original truck does have a side post. I just got these adapters, and this will fit just fine on the batteries that I got. So I removed the battery tray, and you see this tray has seen better days, but that doesn't really concern me all that much. I'm just going to hit this with the wire wheel, paint it, and then I'll be able to put it right back in as it is. I'm not going to replace it or anything. But over here we've got just a little bit of corrosion. Nothing to get too stressed out about, but I do really want to hit this with the wheel and then give it a squirt of primer, and I'm probably going to use rubberized undercoating just because that's a lot better at parts of the car that are exposed to the elements, even though this wheel arch really isn't. I just think it's going to be a really good choice for this particular application. And then you see down here, there's a little bit more corrosion. Since I have the tray off, I'm going to hit that down there as well. And just try to get this whole area, this little corner, cleaned up as good as I can make it. Again, I'm not terribly concerned with restoring this truck. I just want to make it functional, and I want to make it so that it will continue to last long into the future. And so if that means I've got some mismatched spray paint here and there in parts of the truck that no one's ever going to see, I don't really care. So let's get this cleaned up and see what we have to work with. That was enlightening. So as you can see, there is a fair bit of corrosion here. Again, it's nothing to really write home about, but I am also really glad that I got to it when I did, because too much time and it'll start to eat through, because you see quite a bit of pitting there. So there is also some more down there, and it doesn't seem to be as bad, but I'm also not done cleaning this up. I'm going to clean this up a little bit more, and then there's going to be some areas in here that are kind of hard to get to with the wire wheel. So for those areas, I'm going to spray this down with rust neutralizer. And because you're not supposed to use rust neutralizer on bare metal, after I spray it down, I'm going to hit it again with the wire wheel just to get the rust neutralizer off of the bare metal, and then I'll squirt it with primer. And now we're up here on my brick pathway because I have always wanted to try something. So we have a rusty battery tray, and we're going to dunk it in water, and we're going to try to clean it using electrolysis. So here I have a piece of rebar, and I need to pick that back up out of the water because I need to reconnect some wire to it. So I've got the rebar in the water, and then I'm going to wrap some wire around into the battery tray. And then I'm going to use my battery tender to hook up the positive to the rebar and the negative to the wire. And I'm going to add some baking soda into the water. I don't know if the water needs to be that dirty, but hey, whatever. I didn't even have to turn on the hose. It rained this bucket of water just a couple of days ago, so I need to dump it anyway, so I may as well do an experiment with it. All right, it's only been like an hour, and you can see how just absolutely disgusting this water is. I mean, it was gross when we started, but there wasn't all this rust at the top or all this bubbling. So this is the electrolysis working right here, because it comes off of the battery tray and makes its way over to the steel bar where the positive terminal is connected. I'm going to go ahead and shut this thing off. I'm going to pull this thing out and take a look after just an hour what this thing will do. All right, so you can see we've still got plenty of work to do here when it comes to the rust removal, but a whole lot just came off. I may, especially on the back, look at this. Look at this. I think I'm gonna hit this with the wire wheel just real quickly, just to kind of help things along, and then dunk it back in and leave it in there for a few more hours. This is really cool. All right, I can't wait any longer. I took the tray out prematurely from its electrolysis rust treatment, but I'll just put it back in later. That's okay. It'll be another few hours. I don't want to wait any longer. I went to the store. I got some heat to put in the fuel tank to remove some of the moisture from the system, and also put in 2 more gallons of gas. I have no idea how much is in there, but I got this all hooked up. The negative terminal is to a really lousy ground. I'm hoping that's enough just to get it started. And the positive, I had to unbolt 2 of the restraints. So as you can see down here, well, this isn't a problem right now, but you could see how it very well could be if this belt were hooked up. This, by the way, makes a horrible sound, so I'm assuming the compressor is just completely gone. Safe to say. All right, let's try to start this thing up. I am kind of nervous, but also really excited. And I'm also obviously not going to run it for very long because of how freaking dirty it is. Oh, it is disgusting in here. Something happened. Yeah, I see 8 volts on the battery gauge there. I don't know if that's real or not, but let's give this a go. Whoa! That's fire. That doesn't smell good. It was definitely very bad smoke, and I think I found the culprit. You see this wire here? Well, this is a ground strap, and this is a hot wire. This exposed wire was touching this ground strap, so that could have been the cause of the smoke. I need to clip this no matter what. This has to get clipped, which kind of sucks because it's in a really lousy spot, but it needs to get clipped. So I'm going to clip it, and I guess I'll give it another try. So the promising news here is that after I cut this wire, I gave it a little sniff, and this smells exactly like what was burning. So let's hook this back up and try it again. I'm still really, really nervous, but you'll get to be along for the ride. Anything smoking? No? Well, that's progress. That's progress. Nothing's catching fire. I don't smell any new smells. So that's good. We're going to squirt some carb cleaner into the carburetor, give it a little help. Obviously, if the fuel pump is working correctly, it's gonna take a little bit for the fuel to make its way up from the tank to the carburetor. Battery's getting low. Oh, I smell it again. That's not good. I smell something. That doesn't smell good. It smells like more electrical cooking. Well, that was educational. Let's take this battery out, finish cleaning up this battery tray, and then start poking around up there a little bit more. Like I said, I still want to take that distributor cap off and just kind of get in that area a little bit more. So I think that's what we're going to do next. But so what did we learn? So, so, so we tried that. It didn't start up yet. But what did we learn? Well, we learned that there's definitely some cooking happening, and it is of the electrical nature. This definitely had to be cut because this hot wire was directly touching that ground strap. So I might need to replace that ground strap with something insulated. And if you look at the ground strap itself, it's definitely been on fire. So that's got to get replaced, probably with something that's insulated and not going to cause any problems if anything hot touches it. And then I need to start taking things apart back there. I need to start taking electrical things apart. I need to start rewiring things. And this truck just isn't going to start, isn't going to run or make me feel safe until I figure out what happened back there and how to fix it. So I need to get back there and start taking things apart. I did end my electrolysis experiment a little bit earlier than I wanted to. That's because I had some hardware for the Studebaker in here that I needed to retrieve, and it was getting hard to find. So I had to dump it out and fish out the parts I needed. But here is the battery tray, and I have since coated it in rust neutralizer. Honestly, this kind of rust, since it took decades to build up, it's gonna take longer than 8 hours to clear out. So I don't know, this part just isn't that important to me, especially since it has a hole in it. So I'm just gonna, like I said, spray it down with rust neutralizer, then I'll hit it with a wire wheel, and then I'll paint it, and we're gonna put it back in the truck. And there you have it. So once this dries, we'll just throw this back in the truck. Again, this is not a part that I really care all that much about. I mean, it has a hole in it, so who cares? If this were a part that I cared more about, I probably would have let this thing soak overnight with the battery charger going. But whatever, it's just a battery tray. So once this thing dries, I'll throw some clear on it, and then we'll put it back in the truck and move on and probably forget about this. We're actually going to call that a video. It is kind of a bummer that we couldn't get this thing up and running, but at the same time, we learned a whole lot more that's going to guide us through the rest of this process. And most importantly, I think we found out why this truck caught fire in the first place. I mean, we found out by almost setting on fire again, but we still found out some very valuable information. And along the way, we did some really cool science to clean the rust off of car parts for both the battery tray and for some parts for the project I'm going to show you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, comment. And if you don't like what you see, maybe you're offended that I called this thing an 83 and not an 82. Maybe you see some big difference and you're like, oh, the 83 has blah, 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 and the 82. If that's you, leave a comment and I will have my PR department get back to you with a sincere apology. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.